and it was just a one-time Spanish lesson, a one-on-one tutoring lesson, and the parents right after that gave me that review. So it was like easy as pie getting that review. Welcome! Today we're going to be talking all about 5 tips for newbies at Outschool. If you don't know me already, my name is Nikki and I help online teachers increase their income by establishing multiple streams of revenue. And one of the ways that I have increased my income is by working at Outschool. If you haven't heard of Outschool, I do have a whole playlist with multiple videos all about Outschool. But what Outschool is, it's a company where you become an independent contractor. They pay you via PayPal. You set your price and you teach any subject that you are passionate about. You do not need to have a bachelor's degree to do this. You don't have to have a background in education. You just have to have a passion or a hobby to teach kids. I think it's kids ages like 3 to 18. So I'm going to tell you all about the newbie tips at Outschool. And if after listening to this, if you're not already working there, you can reach out to me and we can work together to get you hired, or you can just go right ahead and use my referral link. But when you use my referral link, I will mentor you. And you just have to let me know, though, if you do end up using my referral link, because I will not get your email when you apply. So if you need help, if you need guidance, make sure you reach out to me via email, which is also in the description box. So let's get into the 5 tips for newbies at Outschool. Tip number 1 is to teach ongoing classes. Ongoing classes are something that parents absolutely love. Outschool talks about it. They promote ongoing classes. So what is an ongoing class? It is a subscription-based class where you do not need to have background knowledge to join the class. So let's just give an example like art. Maybe you teach how to draw something each class. So if you teach a class this week about how to draw a butterfly, next week you might have a new class, how to draw a dog. So you don't need any background information from that last class in order to join the following week. Now, I actually have subscription classes, ongoing classes for Spanish 1 for middle school and beginner Spanish for upper elementary. Now, you would think with Spanish, you would need some background knowledge to join the next class, but the way that I have it set up, I have units. I put in my class description where we are in the units so parents can decide if their student wants to join that specific week, or maybe they want to wait until the end of one unit to join the following one. So I'll have like a unit on clothes, a unit on food. And they can join at any time, but I just let them know, like, if you join in the middle of this unit, they might miss some background knowledge. But it's not technically supposed to be set up that way, but the way the description is, the parents have been fine with it. It's been growing really great. So I haven't had any issues. Maybe one student or 1 or 2 kids and their parents weren't, like, they didn't read the description, and so they said, oh, I didn't realize this. But it's there in the description. So I just refer them to that. And then sometimes I'll have people reach out to me and say, hey, when are you starting a new semester? And I'll create a class for them. I'll create a new class because they want to start from the beginning. So tip number 1 is creating ongoing classes. Tip number 2. So this kind of piggybacks off of the ongoing classes. You can make your classes private or public. Now, there are some times where I don't want new students to join at a certain point in my ongoing Spanish lessons because they are really a little bit more complex and they would need that background knowledge. So I will make the class private just for 1 week, and then I'll set it back to public after we do that lesson, because the next lesson will be like a whole new topic. So an example of this is I have a unit where I teach school supplies, and then there's a grammar unit that follows that, which is all about learning how to conjugate verbs, AR verbs. So if a new student, totally new to Spanish, joins on that lesson, they're going to feel a little discouraged. So I will set the class to private for that week so they're not joining with an intimidating topic. And then once we finish that, I will set it back to public. And then if a student joins the next week after the AR verbs, we'll be learning a whole new set of vocabulary, which is like the school vocabulary part 2. And they don't need background knowledge from those other lessons to join that week. Now, in the future, once they've had class with me several times, we'll come up and we'll talk about verbs again. We'll talk about ER verbs and IR verbs. If you know anything about Spanish, there's 3 types of verbs, AR, ER, and IR. And so we'll do a lesson on ER and IR verbs, and I'll review the AR verbs. But once a student has been in my class for several weeks, I know that we build that rapport, that relationship, so they are used to my teaching style. So I'm not worried if they miss that AR verb lesson, because I'll teach in a way that's patient and that students are not intimidated to ask questions. So we've gotten that rapport going, and it's okay that, you know, they'll get that little review in there when we go through verbs for the next time. Let's just recap. Tip 1 is the ongoing classes. Those are really, really hot and easier to get booked. Tip number 2 is setting your class to private if need be, so you can teach something that might piggyback off of a prior lesson if your ongoing class does that. So if you want to make it a little bit more flexible for your teaching, if you want to have like 2-week sets where you teach a certain group of kids and then the next 2 weeks, then the 2 weeks after that, a new group of kids can join in, then you can set it back to public. Tip number 3 is to have templates for your class descriptions, because I have often had my class rejected, because you do have to, at Outschool, when you create a new class, they will approve the class because they want to see that you have all of the standards in there that the parents might be looking for, or that the parents might be asking questions about. So you have to make sure you have your class set up based on the description that Outschool uses. And an example of this for ongoing classes is they require you to say, like, week 1, April 1st, we're going to learn XYZ. They will require you to put a certain amount of weeks in the class description so that the parents can see what you're going to be teaching. And if your class description doesn't meet their standards, your class can get rejected. You can edit it and then submit it again. If you have a template of classes that have been published, then you can use that for new classes that you publish, even if you just edit it a little bit. So tip number 3 is have a template for your class descriptions. It will save you time. Tip number 4 is to use the calendar to your advantage. So Outschool has a calendar, and you can view the calendar in 3 different ways. You can look at the daily agenda, which is just your daily schedule. You can view it by the week, classes that you're going to teach for the week, or you can view your schedule by the month. So take advantage of the Outschool calendar. It is located under the schedule section. And that way, when you're trying to figure out what classes you want to add or what classes are not working for you, it just really helps you get organized with your schedule. Okay, that's a pretty simple one. Take advantage of that calendar. The very last tip that I have for you is how to get reviews on Outschool. So with tip number 5, it's reviews. How do you get those reviews from parents? The main way that I have noticed is having either one-time classes or multi-day classes. When you have ongoing classes, while they get a lot of bookings, they are not as likely to get reviews as the multi-day classes. The reason being, I think, this is my theory, and I also talked with teacher Lauren on Instagram about this. Give her a follow because she has actually given me a lot of tips over the first few months that I worked at Outschool, I reached out to her and asked her some questions here and there. So she said that she thinks multi-day gets more reviews, or one-time classes get more reviews because they get an email, an alert saying Outschool will ask on your behalf if you would give the teacher a review, versus with ongoing classes, I don't think they get that. So it's a lot more difficult to get reviews with those ongoing classes. So I have one-on-one Spanish tutoring, and I got reviews right away from the parents that took those classes. And it was just a one-time Spanish lesson, a one-on-one tutoring lesson, and the parents right after that gave me that review. So it was like easy as pie getting that review, versus the ongoing. I even reached out to some parents and asked them, and some of them, like, they didn't respond, or it was just like nothing, crickets. And then there was some parents, if they sent me an email or a private message on Outschool, not an email, a private message on Outschool. If they sent me a private message on Outschool, they would say like something really kind. Then I would say, oh, if you wouldn't mind, I would greatly appreciate if you would leave a review. And 9 times out of 10, they would leave a review after that. So I was really, really grateful when a parent like privately messaged me and said something kind. And then in return, I would just say, I appreciate that so much. It would really help me out a lot if you would say that in a review. And sometimes they would do it, once in a while they don't. But that's okay. Don't be afraid to ask for a review if somebody is actually saying something kind. That person is excited about that class, and they are probably willing to give you that review because they like you and they want to see you succeed. All right, so let's recap those 5 tips for newbies at Outschool. Tip number 1 is getting those ongoing classes scheduled. Tip number 2 was setting an ongoing class to private mode when you might be teaching something that you feel like a new student would be intimidated by, or maybe it'd be a little bit too hard for them, and then resetting it to public after you've gone through a more challenging lesson. Tip number 3 was using that calendar, utilizing that calendar in Outschool to look at your schedule, see where you're teaching for the week, the month, or the day. Tip number 4 is having a template for your class descriptions, so it saves you time when you're publishing new classes. And then tip number 5 is to use multi-day classes or one-time classes to get reviews from parents. All right, you guys, I will see you in the upcoming videos. Can't wait to give you some more details about Outschool in the upcoming videos, and I'll see you next week. Don't forget to subscribe. Click that like button. It does help more people see this video. Leave me a comment if you guys have either a tip for newbies or if you have any questions about Outschool. See you next week.